Her knees hit the cold floor again. But this time, she was forced to lick it. The billionaire widow, Amanda Ndlovu, sat silently in her leather chair, legs crossed, sipping imported tea like it was a ritual. She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. Just watched. Her maid, Tari, trembling, lowered her tongue to the marble where footprints had dried into filth. Her mouth quivered, but not from disgust, from hunger. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Amanda leaned forward, her voice calm but deadly. You miss a spot, right there by the corner. How did it come to this? How did a girl so full of grace and grit find herself licking dust from the ground like an animal? Let me take you back to the edge of a village in Bulawayo, where the soil was cracked and hope lived on borrowed breath. Tari lived in a shack smaller than most closets, yet she shared it with 3 younger siblings and her mother, who hadn't stood on her own feet in months. Every day was a gamble between buying medicine or food. When her mother coughed blood that morning, Tari made a decision that would change her life forever. She borrowed a pair of worn slippers and walked all the way to the Ndlovu estate, the richest home in 3 provinces, and waited at the gate in the pouring rain for 10 hours. No umbrella, no shade, just rain, tears, and desperation. Amanda saw her, not because of her persistence, but because the rain had washed the dirt from her face, revealing cheekbones Amanda herself once had when she was poor. Amanda had once been like Tari, but something in her broke when Patrick Ndlovu died. The love of her life, the man who raised her from nothing, had vanished without a will. Everyone blamed her. The media, his family, even the staff. But the court gave her everything. The estate, the factories, the gold mines. And with wealth came rage, silent, slow, and terrifying. She didn't want maids. She wanted subjects. Tari was her latest. The first day, Amanda asked Tari to clean the entire house with only a toothbrush. The second, she replaced her lunch with a dog bowl filled with milk. On the third day, Tari was made to wear heels 4 sizes too small while scrubbing windows. Every time she cried, Amanda would smile faintly. It wasn't hatred. It was a test. And Tari, desperate, passed each one. But the 4th day changed everything. Amanda walked in holding a small wooden box. You'll clean the main hall today, she said. With this. Inside the box was a worn cloth and a note Tari couldn't read. But as she worked, the dust smeared strangely. The particles settled into shapes, swirls, strokes, letters. She didn't notice at first, until her fingers formed a curve she'd seen only once before on an old ID photo her mother kept hidden. A name started to appear. She gasped. Amanda's footsteps echoed behind her. What did you just see? Amanda whispered. Suddenly behind her, Tari's voice broke. Ndlovu. Patrick Ndlovu. Amanda dropped her tea. For a moment, the entire house went silent. No wind, no hum from the lights. Just a soft sob that escaped Amanda's lips. He told me if I ever lost myself, the floor would remind me. Tari stared. She had no idea what that meant. Amanda knelt. Her knees touched the dust. For the first time in years, she touched something without gloves. Her fingers ran across the letters. He loved the earth. Said it remembered things. Secrets. Betrayals. That night, Amanda didn't sleep. She sat in the hallway where the name had formed. The next morning, she opened a box from her bedroom drawer and handed Tari a letter sealed and yellowed with age. He wrote this before he died, but he never gave it to me. He gave it to Floor. Tari opened it slowly. Her hands shook. The letter was addressed not to Amanda, but to a woman named Zanil, her mother. In it, Patrick confessed everything. His secret second family, the daughter he never met, and the guilt he carried. Tari, Amanda whispered, "You are my husband's blood." Tari dropped the letter. The woman who made her lick the floor was her stepmother. Amanda collapsed, not in shame, in grief. He told me to test the one who came in his name. Said she'd survive anything, even me. Tari cried for the first time in days, not for pain, but for the man she never knew. Amanda took her hand. "Forgive me. I had to know it was you." The dust had remembered, and justice, twisted as it was, had been done. 3 months earlier, the scent of old wood and groundnut oil clung to the air in the tiny mud house where Aisha lived with her 2 younger siblings. The sun had just begun to crawl across the tin roof, its light piercing through the gaps like knives of hope in a place long forgotten by kindness. There was no sugar, no soap, no firewood that day, just the aching in their stomachs and the dry cough of their baby sister in the corner. Aisha, the eldest at just 22, wrapped her baby sister's chest with a worn cloth and kissed her burning forehead. Their mother had died giving birth to that same baby, and their father, no one really knew. Some said he ran into the forest when the debts came knocking. Others said he was buried beneath the concrete of the rich man's mansion he helped build, without a grave or prayer to his name. She didn't have time to cry. Not today. The landlord had come again last night, banging the door with his torch, threatening to lock them out by the weekend. The neighbors had stopped offering help. No one had enough even for themselves. Aisha did what she always did when the walls felt like they were closing in. She looked up. "God," she whispered, voice nearly breaking. "Just give me one day where I don't have to beg." She put on her mother's old wrapper, tied her hair back, and walked into the richer part of the city, where the roads were paved and the houses were guarded by gates taller than palm trees. She knocked on back doors. She offered to sweep, to fetch water, to wash toilets. Most days, they sent her away with a laugh. But that day, one door opened. A tall, thin woman, draped in black silk, looked her up and down like inspecting rotten fruit. She wore pearls even in the morning, and her eyes, sharp and cold, could slice through dignity without saying a word. "You look desperate," the woman said, not unkindly, but not kindly either. "I am." That was enough. "I need someone to clean," she said, turning her back. "Every day. No complaints. No mistakes." Aisha hesitated for just a second. "Yes, Ma, I'll do anything." And that was the beginning. The house was a palace. Smooth floors, golden taps, chandeliers with crystals that made the walls dance. But there was no joy in it, no laughter, no photos on the walls, just silence and shadows. The woman's name was Madame Fola, a name known by everyone in the city. Her husband had been one of the wealthiest men before his mysterious death 5 years ago. Some said he died in a car crash. Others whispered about poisoning. His body was never found. But his empire remained, and Fola ruled it with an iron hand. She never smiled. She never asked questions. But she watched. Always watched. In the beginning, it was tolerable. The work was hard. Endless scrubbing, bending, polishing. But Aisha endured. She needed the money. Her siblings needed medicine, food, school fees. So she worked from dawn till dark, often sleeping on a mat in the storage room. But soon, the rules changed. No speaking in the house, Madam said one morning. Silence is part of cleanliness. Then came the clothing restriction. No shoes, no jewelry, no color. Aisha was handed a brown rag-like uniform that made her feel invisible. Then, no eating. "You'll eat after I'm done. What's left, you may take," Madam said, even though Aisha's stomach growled loud enough to echo. Still, Aisha endured. She didn't break. Not when Madam made her clean with toothbrushes. Not when she was slapped for missing a single strand of hair on the carpet. Not even when Madam locked her in the pantry for an hour for sneezing during prayer time. She didn't break until the floor. It was a rainy evening. Thunder echoed through the marbled holes like a curse. The power had flickered twice already. Aisha was scrubbing near the entrance when Madam walked in, soaked from head to toe. The door had been muddy from the gardener's boots. Aisha hadn't seen it in time. "What is this filth?" Madam whispered, too calmly. "I'm sorry, On your knees." Aisha obeyed, her legs shaking. "Use your tongue," she said. The silence stretched. Aisha thought she hadn't heard her right. I said, Madam repeated, louder, voice like a dagger. "Use your tongue. Clean it." Her pride screamed. Her ancestors wept. But her siblings' faces flashed before her eyes. The dry cough, The empty pot. The eviction notice. She lowered her head. Her tongue touched the cold, dirty tile, and something inside her shattered. But she didn't cry. Not once. Even when Madam walked away, whispering, "You were made for this." That night, Aisha lay on the floor of the pantry, staring at the ceiling. Her mouth burned. Her throat ached. But her heart was hollow. It wasn't just humiliation. It was hatred, but not towards Madam. Towards herself. For surviving. The days that followed grew darker. Madam started speaking to the walls. She never would have let this house fall apart, she muttered one evening. Sometimes, she'd stand for hours in front of a large painting of a late husband, a tall man with kind eyes and a distant smile. "He never came back," she whispered once, not knowing Aisha were behind her, not even in my dreams. One night, as rain pelted the roof and the thunder rolled like angry drums, Madam woke Aisha at midnight. "Come," she said, her voice strange. "Soft." Aisha followed her to the dining room. "There's dust on the floor again," she said, staring blankly at the tiles. "But I cleaned it, Madam. Twice." "You think I don't know what I see?" "No, Madam." "Then prove it." Aisha looked down. The floor was spotless. I said, "Prove it." Her knees hit the ground. Again. And once more, her tongue touched the floor. But this time, as she moved, sweeping her tongue across the tile with shaking hands, something happened. The dust gathered, just a little, and formed a line. Then a curve. Then more. A shape. A letter. Then another. She stopped. Her eyes widened. It spelled a name. One she had seen on the painting. A name the city hadn't spoken in 5 years. Tunde. Madam's dead husband. The dust had formed his name. And that's when everything changed. The name didn't move. Even as Aisha stumbled back, gasping, her mouth trembling, the words stayed, written in perfect cursive across the tile in a thin line of dust. Tunde. She blinked, rubbed her eyes. It was still there. Her heart pounded so loud it felt like it would burst through her ribs. She turned to look at Madame Fola, who stood just a few steps away, her face unreadable. Had she seen it? Had she written it? Or was it even real? Aisha slowly pointed at the floor. "Madam!" But Fola didn't respond. She was frozen. Her eyes locked on the name like it had crawled out of a grave. The room felt colder now. Despite the humid night air and the sweat on Aisha's forehead, a chill crept down her spine. Outside, the rain slammed harder against the windows, as if the heavens themselves were screaming. Madame Fola dropped to her knees, something Aisha had never seen before. Not once in all those brutal, cruel weeks. She touched the tile, gently, like touching the name of a lost child. "Tunde," she whispered. Aisha remained still. She didn't know what was happening, but she didn't dare move. Madame Fola's fingers trembled as she traced the letters in the dust, smudging them slowly. "I buried him," she said, her voice shaking. "I buried him with my own hands." Aisha's breath caught in her throat. What did you say, Madam?" Madame Fola looked up. Her face was pale, not from fear, but from memory. He wasn't dead yet. The words floated through the room like smoke from a dying fire. "I poisoned him," she said. "But he opened his eyes when I was already digging." Aisha staggered backward. "You killed him," she whispered. Madam blinked. "He was going to leave me. For his secretary. Said I was too cruel. Too bitter." She laughed, not out of humor, but like someone remembering something too painful to scream about. "He said I didn't have a heart. That I ruled his life like a business. That I had no soul left." She looked up at Aisha. Maybe he was right. For a moment, Aisha thought she might faint. "I buried him in the backyard," Madame Fola said, turning her face toward the window where the garden lights flickered, right under the orange tree. The very tree Aisha had swept leaves from every single morning. "Why are you telling me this?" Aisha whispered, her voice cracking. "Because you saw it too." "The name?" "Yes, you saw it. But I didn't write it. I swear I didn't." "I know," Madam said. "He did." Aisha's stomach twisted. The next day, nothing was the same. Madame Fuller didn't yell. She didn't inspect the tiles. She didn't make Aisha lick the floor. She just stared out the window, hours at a time. One morning, Aisha found her in the garden, digging, bare hands, dirt under her nails, her eyes hollow, searching. "He's not there," she murmured. "I swear I put him here, but he's not." She started crying. Not the elegant, composed tears of a rich widow, but the loud, broken sobs of someone whose sanity was slowly slipping. That night, the floor dust rose again. This time, Aisha wasn't forced to her knees. She cleaned as usual, mop in hand, and as she stepped into the hallway, she froze. The tiles were clean, but right in the middle, under the chandelier, was another word, liar. It was written in the same style, same dust, same impossible neatness. Aisha didn't tell Madam this time. She cleaned it quickly, quietly, and went back to her room, but sleep didn't come. She kept hearing whispers, not words, just whispers, faint, like a breath behind her ear. The next night, another message, dig. This time, Madam saw it too. She collapsed. Aisha had to call the doctor, the same one who used to serve Madam's late husband. When he arrived, he looked older, smaller, like the years had worn him thin. "She's been unwell for a long time," he said to Aisha privately. "Grief, guilt, maybe more." "She talks about him," Aisha whispered, "as if he's still here." The doctor sighed. "Maybe he is." Then he left, too quickly, too afraid. That evening, Madame Fuller ordered Aisha to bring a shovel. "You're going to help me dig," she said. "I what?" "We're going to find him. We're going to find where I put him." "But, Madam, or maybe you'll find us first." Her eyes were not right anymore. Not the same woman who forced Aisha to clean with her tongue. Not the same cruel, polished, wealthy widow. She looked haunted now. Hunted. They dug under the orange tree, then near the fence, then behind the dog's kennel. Nothing. Only roots, stones, and something else. A ring. Gold. Engraved. TF. Madam screamed when she saw it. "That's his. I swear it. That's his wedding band." She held it to her chest like a relic. The whispers grew louder after that. They didn't come at night anymore. They came in daylight. At noon while Aisha swept. At 4 while folding sheets. Aisha would turn her head, thinking someone had called her name, but the hallway would be empty. The walls started weeping too, or maybe it was the plumbing. But every night, water dripped from one corner in the dining room, right where the name had first appeared. Then the chandelier fell. Aisha was beneath it seconds before. She had stepped away only to pick up the bucket. When it crashed, Madam laughed. Laughed until she cried. "He wants me to suffer," she said. "He doesn't want me dead. He wants me broken." The final message came 3 days later. Madam had locked herself in her bedroom, refused to eat, refused to speak. Aisha was scrubbing the floor out of habit now. She no longer expected money, or kindness, or even survival. She just cleaned, and then she saw it. This time, the dust wrote a full sentence. "She made me crawl. Now she will." Aisha stepped back. Her breath caught. She dropped the mop and ran to Madam's room. The door was ajar. Inside, Madame Fuller was crawling on her stomach, mouth open, eyes wild. Her body moved like something was pulling her, dragging her across the marble toward the hallway. She wasn't screaming. She was smiling. "I'm sorry," she whispered over and over. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Aisha stood frozen. Something cold brushed past her, like wind, like presence. Madame Fuller stopped moving. She collapsed right there, face down on the tile. When Aisha approached her, she was still breathing. But she wasn't there. Her eyes stared blankly at the dust in front of her. A new word was forming, right beneath her cheek. Judgment. The next morning, she didn't get up. Madame Fuller lay exactly where she had fallen, curled on the cold floor, eyes open but unblinking, breath shallow. Her silk robe was soaked in sweat, but her lips kept moving, whispering, like she was still talking to someone only she could see. Aisha didn't know what to do anymore. The mansion was quiet in a way it had never been before. No yelling, no footsteps in heels, no barking orders. Just silence, thick, heavy silence that pressed against the walls like fog. Outside, the orange tree had dropped all its leaves overnight. Not just some, all. Its branches hung bare like something had drained its soul. And still, the dust kept writing. This time, Aisha didn't need to clean it. The words vanished after a few hours, on their own, as if the floor had swallowed them. But she read every one of them. She made him crawl to beg. She called it loyalty. She took his voice before the poison. And finally, the one that didn't disappear. The truth is in the floor. Aisha didn't sleep that night. She sat by the bedroom door, just listening to the occasional mutter from Madame Fola's room. She couldn't make out full sentences, just fragments. Buried alive? He begged. No coffin. She wanted to leave. Every part of her screamed to pack a bag, run, disappear. But she couldn't. Something bigger was holding her there. The next day, she did something she never imagined. She lifted one of the tiles, the one where the name had first appeared. It took her nearly an hour. The tiles were thick, expensive marble, sealed in with years of polish and pride. But she chipped at the corners, pried, clawed, until one came loose. And beneath it, she found bones. Small, ashy, burned. She screamed. Her hands trembled as she dropped the tile, fell backward, heart pounding. She wasn't imagining it. Tund had never left. He was beneath them. All this time, she called the police, whispered down the line, didn't even give her name, just enough to bring them. When they arrived, they didn't believe her, until she showed them. Tile by tile, she uncovered what the dust had known all along. Underneath the marble floor of the grand hallway was a shallow grave, not just bones, a skull, a gold tooth, a wallet, half burned, but still bearing the initials TF, and a wedding band identical to the one they had already found in the garden. The officers didn't speak for a long time. They stared. Then they turned to Madame Fola, still curled up on her bedroom floor, still mumbling like a child lost in nightmare. When they carried her out, she didn't fight. She didn't blink. She just kept whispering, "He forgave me. I think he forgave me." But Aisha knew the truth. He hadn't. What came next was chaos. The media, the headlines. Billionaire's widow arrested after body found under mansion floor. New evidence suggests he was buried alive. Former Maid uncovers darkest secret of Lagos elite. People called Aisha hero. She didn't feel like one. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that dust-forming words. She heard the whisper in her ear. And sometimes she still did. She left the mansion, went back to the slum where her mother once lived. The neighbors didn't recognize her anymore. Not because she had changed, but because the weight of what she had survived followed her like a shadow. One day, a letter arrived. No return address. No name. Inside was a check, a massive one, and a note. This was meant to be his last act of kindness. He asked the lawyer to deliver it, but only if his body was ever found. "I hope it brings you peace." Aisha stared at the paper for hours. She never cashed it. Instead, she took it to the same orange tree. It was dying now, brittle, cracked, like the guilt that had watered it had dried up. She buried the check beneath the roots and whispered, "Thank you." But the story didn't end there. 6 months later, the mansion went up for sale. No one bought it. They said the walls whispered, that the tiles never stayed clean, that even after full renovation, dust would return, always forming the same name. Tund. The agent started calling it the house that cried. No one lived there again. And as for Madame Fola, she never went to trial. They said her mind was gone, that she sat in a white room every day, rocking slowly, tracing invisible names on the floor with her fingers. But sometimes, the nurses reported strange things, like her voice changing, deeper, colder, like her eyes turning pitch black for a few seconds. And always the same phrase, "She made me crawl, now she will